Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Welcome inside More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Draft time is closing in for the NFL. We'll talk some Browns in a little bit, but baseball is back. The Indians opener wasn't exactly what the Tribe wanted in Minnesota yesterday, but baseball is back. The games are meaningful, and the Indians are making some news today as well. The Indians signed outfielder Cameron Maybin to a minor league contract. Maybin is a guy who has played parts of 11 seasons in the major leagues, a career .254 hitter. He hit .249 last year with a couple of teams. He's a guy that can steal a base, can play some pretty good defense as well. He hit .315 as recently as 2016 when he was a nightmare for the Detroit Tigers and had an outstanding season. Again, a .315 hitter with almost 36 home runs as well back in 2016. Time to welcome in the Indians beat reporter from MLB.com, Mandy Bell. She is with the team in Minnesota getting ready for a game tomorrow. Indians have an off day. Mandy, you got to go to work. Tell us about Maybin. Do you like the signing? I think it's a pretty good one for the Indians.
I just don't think that you can really make a bad signing whenever it's a minor league deal right now for veteran guys like they've been doing now. Maybin, before they had Matt Joyce, and obviously Carlos Gonzalez, which was a little bit more recent. There's just no risk involved to these deals, and if it pays off, they look like geniuses. So I don't see why you wouldn't do it at this point. I know there's been the mixed reviews on Twitter right now that I've been reading and stuff, but honestly, at this point, if it's a minor league deal, go for it, I would say. He's obviously going to be starting out at AAA, and if they like enough what they see, they could bring him up. I know they want to test out to see how Jake Bauers and Tyler Naquin does in left and right field this year. Give them a little bit of a chance. Carlos Gonzalez has until April 20th to get called up. They have so many outfield choices now, which is not something that any of us expected to say, I guess maybe just a few weeks ago. But they have a bunch of different options now in AAA, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out if he gets the call up and when he does.
And I think that's the bottom line with this is they want to have options. You don't want to be locked into, we have to play this guy who really isn't comfortable at the big league level. You mentioned Carlos Gonzalez, and that's another guy that has done it. I mean, Gonzalez hit .276 last year and almost 500 at-bats, and he also had 16 homers, 64 runs batted in. He's a career .287 hitter. Those are all good things. I mean, those are guys who have done it at the big league level before. And with the Indians pitching, they've got to find guys that they can plug in that can get it done.
Right, and I think Gonzalez was a really, really great signing. He seems like he's really excited to be here. Now, he was a little bit different than Maybin. Maybin at least had spring training with the Giants. Gonzalez didn't have spring training at all, so that's why he has until April 20th to get called up. He's down in Goodyear still right now at the spring training facility, getting himself stretched out. I think he's going to stay there for a little bit longer, even after the minor league guys leave and go to their respective teams. He's going to stay down there for a little bit longer, and then he'll eventually join AAA Columbus, and he'll be able to get a few at-bats. But the Indians wanted to make sure that he got his full 30 days or 28 days of spring training, just to be able to make sure that he's ready to go, his body's ready to go. And it's a little bit different. He was explaining whenever he first got to camp, I guess it was a little over a week ago now, that pitchers can go without spring training and still do their same routine at home. They can go through their bullpen sessions, they can get stretched out. But position players, it's a little bit different just because they can't really run the bases. They can't really read fly balls at home. So it's a little bit different. So he's going to need to take his time down at AAA to make sure that he is ready to go, because the last thing the Indians want right now is another injury.
And goes into what I was going to ask you about next. What's the latest on Francisco Lindor? We know he rolled his ankle. There were some reports that it didn't seem to be too serious. You're with the team. What's the latest that you've heard on that?
It's tough to tell right now. They're waiting to confirm with a doctor in Green Bay. They want to get a second opinion from him. I guess he's a foot specialist, so he's going to be checking out the ankle. They want to get a second opinion from him before they put out any time frame when he might return, just because he is battling a left ankle sprain and a right calf strain. it's a little bit different just because they have to balance the rehab of both injuries. Now, it looked like he was really, really close to kicking this calf strain. They were optimistic that he'd be able to return around April 4th, which was his earliest date, but now obviously that's going to be pushed back just a little bit further. How much further? It's going to depend on what the second opinion from the doctor in Green Bay works up for them.
And obviously, with a position like shortstop, the calf is related to the ankle, is related to the hamstring, is related. So everything's kind of interrelated when you have to get those quick, explosive moves. Let's talk a little bit about the opener. I think if this wasn't the first game of the season, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Wouldn't have been made of it. The Indians' offense just 2 of 29. 13 strikeouts, just 1 walk. The 2 through 7 hitters, 0 of 19, 6 strikeouts. Again, so much gets made of the opener because everybody is all excited about it being back, about baseball counting. There are some concerning things with the strikeouts and the lack of walks. I mean, the two in conjunction are the thing I think that probably concerns the Indians most because it kind of just speaks to not getting good at bats where you're going deep in counts.
Right. And like you said, there's just so much excitement whenever it comes to opening day. Everything's back. Baseball's back. Everything's starting to get underway. And I think because of that, and just because they have so many young, inexperienced players, they might be gripping the bat a little bit tighter yesterday. They might be a little bit more anxious at the plate. That could all play into the lack of walks. They just really wanted to make sure that they got that hit. They wanted to start the season on the right note. And that adds the pressure. That could all play into it. But it also can't take away from the way that Barrios was pitching yesterday. He had an outstanding day on the mound. All of them, the Indians at post-game, Francona even said he manhandled us today. I mean, his stuff was outstanding yesterday. So it's tough to compete with that, the pressure of opening day, and all the pressure that's surrounding the Indians right now, just because they have so many new faces. There's so much pressure on them to prove themselves. A lot of these young, inexperienced guys, so many fans are saying, we're in a tough situation. We don't have hitters. We're not going to be able to score runs, all of these things. So whenever they have all of this in the back of their minds, they obviously want to prove what they can do. So it's early in the year. No need to press the panic button just yet. They're fresh off of spring training, and maybe once this pressure goes away a little bit and they ease themselves back into the game, things will hopefully start getting rolling for the Indians.
We're going to take a quick timeout. Mandy Bell, the beat reporter for the Indians for MLB.com, will stay with us. We will preview Game 2. Trevor Bauer takes the hill tomorrow as the Indians will have Games 2 and 3 in Minnesota of the season. You're watching More Sports and Less. Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back to More Sports and Less. Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Getting set for Game 2 of the Indian season. Tomorrow, it will be Trevor Bauer taking the hill against Jake Odorizzi. Let's head back to Indians beat reporter for cleveland.com, MLB.com, Mandy Bell. And Mandy, Jake Bauer and Trevor Bauer, Jake Odorizzi is the pitching matchup. And Bauer's a guy that's looked pretty good for the most part. And we're taking a look at what they did last year. And if Bauer doesn't get hit late in the season, he may be a Cy Young finalist. I mean, he had that type of year last year.
Oh yeah, and if you ask him if he didn't get hit, he would have been the Cy Young Award winner. Um, and if you look at his numbers, he was on pace to be be a finalist for sure. And he spent all off season working on his changeup. Was his number one focus. And if you ever look at the spreadsheets and everything that he ever posts of everything he does, he makes sure that he covers all of his bases. And he came into spring training this year, and I think it was the first three starts. He was only doing fastball changeup, and it looked really, really, really good. Francona and he both have said if he could master that pitch for the season, it could only take him to new levels this year. And after everyone saw what he could do last year, it's hard to imagine a better and more improved Trevor Bauer than the season that he had last year. But he and Francona both seem to think that it could happen this year, and it'll be exciting to see the changeup finally in a regular season game tomorrow to see if it's everything that he thinks it's going to be this year.
Mandy Bell, the Indians beat reporter for MLB.com, joining us from Minnesota, where the Indians are getting ready to play the Twins tomorrow, and they'll wrap up the series on Sunday. Jake Odorizzi is a guy, the number 2 starter for the Twins, who the Indians have had a lot of success against. So that is another thing that is definitely a positive.
Right, and it's this game is going to be big for the Indians. I know a lot of focus has been on Indians Twins this year. Those are the two that are supposed to be the front runners this year to take home the AL Central title. So to be able to have Odorizzi back on the mound, a pitcher who they have had success against, although they do have some new bats in this lineup, so it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. To be able to maybe have a better shot than maybe what Barrios was showing them yesterday, to get back in the winners column and to split this series 1-1. I know a lot of people are talking about how the fact that this is going to be running down to the end. It could be a foot race at the end for the AL Central this year.
Mandy, we appreciate the time as always. Mandy Bell, the Indians beat reporter for MLB.com. Check her out online. She joins us from Minnesota. We appreciate the time, Mandy. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report will talk Browns draft, some names you'll want to remember as the Browns try to build out this roster. You're watching More Sports and Less. Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition here on cleveland.com.
Your basement is damp, dirty, and not somewhere you want to spend time. Let Nature Stone Flooring transform your basement into a true extension of your home. Nature Stone's proprietary hydrostatic ports allow water to simply evaporate, so no mold or mildew. Plus, it has a higher insulation rating than carpet and is warmer than linoleum, vinyl, wood, or tile.
Schedule your free in-home estimate easily online today and get up to 50% off.
Nature Stone is the affordable basement floor solution that beautifies your home. Nature Stone, the only concrete solution.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less. Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. The NFL Draft now less than a month away. Of course, the Browns do not have a pick in the first round. Nobody's going to complain. They traded that and turned it into Odell Beckham Jr., but they do have a pick in the second round, the 49th overall pick. Let's welcome in Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report, also a contributor here on cleveland.com. Jake, I know you've done some extensive research watching some of these guys. Who are some names to keep an eye on at 49 for the Browns?
Yeah, I think everybody is pretty convinced that they're going to certainly need some help along the cornerback secondary market. We'll talk one more position as well, but a guy who makes a lot of sense, the guy who the Browns are going to bring in for a workout, Justin Lane, kid from Michigan State, really good football player, has obviously had a nice career in terms of production. He switched over from a wide receiver is what he initially came to play. He's from the Cleveland area, has a connection to the Browns, even has made it known on his social media that he quote unquote wants the Browns to bring him home. A really good cover 3 corner, turn bail guy who can play the jump ball effectively. Long, lanky body type that is going to give a nice option, so sort of opposite Denzel Ward in those options in terms of matching up with different receiver types, as Ward is that guy who can run with those burners. And then you maybe have Lane who can play a little bit more of the lankier, taller receivers and play the high point stuff that a lot of teams like to operate in. So, it's just a good fit, could be an ideal fit in a cover 3 system. That opposite player, I know the Browns have Terrence Mitchell, who they liked a lot last year. They brought over from Kansas City, obviously liked a little bit of what TJ Carey was able to do in the last half of the season. But you can never have enough good cornerback depth. They let go of Brian Body Calhoun, so I'm sure they will look to attack corner in some capacity. And Justin Lane might make a lot of sense. He shot up draft boards, but at the same time, he is a guy who could sort of settle into that early second round. If he's not taken late in the first, that early second round, and could potentially slip to the Browns at 49 if they'd like him to. Another area they might try to attack is offensive tackle. Yanni Kajusta, kid, West Virginia, might sort of be that odd man out from the first group of tackles. He's a big guy, can play left tackle, had upwards of 30 starts at left tackle in his career at West Virginia, battled some knee injuries, but he's got that long body type that you think is good enough to handle left tackle position for a long time, able to sort of get back, handle speed rushers, but also at 312, he'd probably settle in about 310 pounds, able to handle the bull rush that teams throw too. I know Desmond Harrison was a guy the Browns started early last year, was a guy who could obviously handle speed rush, but wasn't necessarily great at handling the power rush or the bull rush that teams were throwing at him. So that balance and what the Browns look for there, if he's available at 49, Yanni Kajusta, Greg Little, another guy from Ole Miss, are names that they could certainly consider to groom a long-term offensive tackle answer, whether on the left side or the right side, if they should so choose. And then strong safety is another position that they are certainly going to, as each day passes, have to attack as well. They haven't brought in Eric Berry. They haven't brought in Trey Boston, a guy that makes a lot of sense. Some people have mocked him there, across the multitude of drafts that come out from some really good draft analysts. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, kid from Florida, is a fantastic safety corner hybrid. You think of last year, a lot of the Browns' buzz was for Minkah Fitzpatrick from Alabama, and Minkah went to Miami early in the draft. The Browns passed on him. But you think that type of player, that's what you could get with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a guy who can play the slot and not just play tight ends or bigger slots, but be able to play smaller slots, shifty guys, can also come up and play the hash and cover 3, but can play a cover 2 situation as well, and is able to come up and participate in the run game in the box. So we talk about what Jabril Peppers' responsibilities were in this defense and why Steve Wilkes was so excited to have that player, is his ability to play the run game and pass game and be a threat, almost like a pseudo hybrid linebacker. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson can do that, but he can also give you a little bit of athleticism that is more than expected at that position, to be able to cover all the time and stay on the field. So there's no need to ever remove him from the field, because he can play in any, your base 4-3. He could play in your, big nickel situations. All of those things he can play in those spots, and he would be an ideal fit. Now, does he get to 49? I don't know. But if he does, that is the ideal player that the Browns need at that position.
Well, the other thing is John Dorsey and everybody is looking for diamonds in the rough, those day 3 sleepers. I know you've done a lot of work on this. There's a print piece that you can check out on cleveland.com based on what Jake has done with his film room study. Take me through some of these guys and some of the guys that have kind of jumped out that are potential day 3 sleeper type prospects for the Browns.
Yeah, I think Sean Bunting's name's listed there. He's a guy who's really shooting up boards of late. He might not be a day 3 guy, but a really fantastic corner, a guy with really effective top-end speed, can sort of pinch, play close position, great at ball skills, going up and getting the football in tough contested situations, but has nice awareness, anticipation. If he's there even at 80, Dave, I would consider taking Sean Bunting out of Central Michigan. Other guys I really like, and I mentioned this when I wrote that piece, the Browns special teams unit was one of the worst in the league last year. Actually, it was dead last. They need better players at ball hunting, finding those things, running down the field. Guys that I thought make a ton of sense. Cole Holcomb, the North Carolina linebacker there, is just a really good, hungry football player. Really reminds me of Joe Schobert in a way, the way he can get down the field in special team situations, but is an effective player in the box, has a nose for the football, a great athlete, tested off the charts. He was actually a former walk-on at North Carolina, but has great film to match up with, sort of his draft stock, where he could be taken and developing into possibly a will linebacker when the Browns do have to move on from Christian Kirksey. So he's a really good special teams fit. And then lastly, Cortez Broughton, a kid out of Cincinnati, a really fun defensive tackle study, has some off-the-charts production. I'm not sure what his testing numbers look like. He wasn't able to participate at the Combine, but he is going to be a guy that you pay attention to Cincinnati University's Pro Day. But a really fun player who gets off the football quick, has those traits that John Dorsey loves, pass rushers who get to the, have the ability to, from the interior, get to the quarterback, and he's proven that on tape. He had, I think, 8.5 sacks his senior year alone, so the production was off the charts. A guy about 6'2", 290 could play that 3 technique opposite Larry Ogunjobi, or, obviously they have Sheldon Richardson. He'd be that depth player that they need, a guy they can get production from. Just needs really good coaching at the next level. level and teach him how to use his hands a little bit more. But that's what Tosh Lupoi, Steve Wilkes, those guys can help with. So some fun players that I urge you to read that if you're looking for some guys the Browns might be into in the later rounds.
Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report, also a contributor here on cleveland.com. We're going to take a quick time out. We know John Dorsey is willing to trade players. We'll check back in with Jake and talk some guys that might be available via trade. So potential trade targets coming up on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Stay with us.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
It takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling to bring the heat when things get chilly. Find us at 440-449-HEAT.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We told you some names to keep an eye on as the draft approaches in less than a month for the Browns and the NFL. Let's talk a little bit about trades. John Dorsey, not afraid to trade whatsoever, and a guy that could be had potentially is Emmanuel Ogbah. Time to bring back in Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report, contributor here on cleveland.com as well. Jake, we appreciate the time. Take us through, there's a linebacker out there that Buckeye fans will remember the name of that could be a potential match with the Browns. What are your thoughts with Darren Lee?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a player who can possibly fill that role left by Jamie Collins, or even look to be that second linebacker on the field if they don't want to play three linebackers so much, Darren Lee makes a ton of sense. He was brought into a system in New York, a 3-4 system. He hasn't quite flourished the way I think, Jets fans hoped he would as a first-round pick. And, it gets to the point sometimes with these guys you take early as a franchise that, maybe a change of scenery is good for both of them, or maybe that trade scenario can work out best for the franchise. And a Darren Lee for Emmanuel Ogbah trade makes a lot of sense. I think Emmanuel Ogbah would be what we call a 5 technique player, which is a guy who lines up sort of on the inside shoulder, of a tackle, a 4-eye 5 technique head up on a tackle, and sort of plays that gap inside instead of having to rush off the edge. He is not necessarily a pass rush specialist by any stretch of the imagination, and it is a place that he struggled in Cleveland, so it would make a lot of sense for him. Darren Lee, as Buckeye fans remember, a part of that 2014 national championship team, was just all over the football field, could cover, could make tackles in space, and he's really excelled. Just last year, he sort of finally took really good strides pass coverage wise. He's an exceptional athlete, so I think he would make a lot of sense if the Browns do covet that sort of player that can get out and play in space, play the screen game, play all those different aspects a guy maybe that's playing on the edge of the tackle box can do, and also get after the quarterback too. So it would make sense for the Browns needing depth at linebacker, needing young players to compete there, be a part of the future, but it could also mean a lot of good things for New York too. So it's a really good sort of even trade if those two are kicking around the idea of improving a couple positions of need.
Yeah, and I'm old enough that I can tell you Darren Lee played quarterback in the Columbus area in high school, and I saw him do it. That's how good of an athlete he is. Another guy that you think could be on the Browns' radar, Rasul Douglas from Philadelphia. Take me through what he does well, what you like about him.
Yeah, NewJersey.com just put out a good article on this idea. I think that, the Eagles are looking to improve upon their depth in terms of young players along their defensive line. They just brought back Brandon Graham amongst a defensive line there in Philly that's aging a little bit, and they thought sort of Rasul has been the odd man out with the Rodney McLeod signing and some other things. They brought back Ronald Darby. It would make some sense that if Philly was looking to sort of offload a position of strength and youth in the secondary, that it could make sense for the Browns to move Rasul to Cleveland. He has been a guy as a sort of 6'2" player, a little over 200 pounds, 215 or so, a guy that could transition well into that safety role for Cleveland too. There haven't been any strong connections, just a trade that if you looked at it on paper makes a ton of sense for both sides, because Philly, like we mentioned, could really take a risk here on a young player, getting him amongst Chris Long, those older types of guys that Philly's had so much success with for so long, teaching him some things and possibly being a player they could keep on a cheap second contract, but also can contribute to them up front. And Rasul could fill a role here in Cleveland too. And it just makes a lot of sense because the Browns do look at the trade market pretty actively. John Dorsey's looking to take those advantages when they're presented to him. Obviously, last year they made a successful safety shift between Demarius Randall, swapping him for Deshaun Kaiser in Green Bay and bringing him back to his original free safety position, and found so much success here. It's well documented. So it might be something that makes sense for Cleveland sort of to, see if they can make another transition. And even if Rasul can't transition, he's a pretty good corner too that can handle that role and could possibly earn a starting job opposite Denzel Ward if they wanted him to.
Another guy that has been mentioned as a potential guy that the Browns would be willing to trade, Duke Johnson. Now, Jordan Howard was traded from the Bears to the Eagles, and they're only going to get a 5th or a 6th round pick in 2020 based on Howard's production. Does that show you the value of running backs as far as the trade market goes?
Yeah, it's always going to be challenging in the modern NFL to get really good value for running backs. The Browns decided to last year, as John Dorsey, one of his first few moves was to extend Duke Johnson and pay him top 15 running back money. And Duke Johnson was a really good football player on the Browns offensive side since he was drafted here. And that's largely due to the fact that the Browns haven't had many weapons other than him. And he was a successful cornerstone of the offense for a while. We saw late last year as the offense started to flourish under Baker Mayfield that it's not necessarily going to be funneled to any one player all the time to force feed somebody. And I think we started to realize that there's not necessarily a need to pay your second running back this type of money if he's not going to get a ton of touches throughout a game. And that's where the Browns might be sort of weighing things. They, whether you like it or not, they backed into Kareem Hunt for a really cheap contract. And Kareem Hunt, by all measures, in his time spent in the NFL as a top 5 running back, just sheer performance production alone. So you're looking at 2 extremely good running backs possibly getting snaps ahead of Duke Johnson, between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And I do understand that there is the, Kareem Hunt's suspended for 8 games angle, and you can keep Duke Johnson for a little bit longer, maybe look to trade him at the midway point, is right up to the trade deadline is when Kareem Hunt will come back. So maybe if the Browns don't find any value, and maybe there isn't any value because you can draft these players like Phillip Lindsay, who was he was undrafted and signed with Denver last year, and nearly, if it wasn't for Saquon Barkley's impressive feats, would have won at least close to winning the Rookie of the Year award. He was up for the Rookie of the Year award as an undrafted free agent. So you can get those running backs anywhere, which means it just diminishes the value of giving up, really good assets such as draft picks to take on a running back who's not on a rookie contract and cheap, but is coming with top 15 running back money. And then in the same hand is a guy that you necessarily can't call a bell cow running back who you're able to consistently hand the football off to. He's a guy that's sort of a niche player, and he's effective. He's dynamic in the passing game. But when you bring a guy like Duke Johnson on the field, a defense knows it's probably about 70-30 that a pass is going to take place, and you can sort of shift your state of mind. While guys like Kareem Hunt, guys like Nick Chubb, you don't have that. You really have to play at 50-50 because this running back could get the football, and we don't want to be off balance. So that's where the Browns are. They're weighing it. The good part is they have a wealth of talent at the running back position. If they do hold on to Duke Johnson, there's no reason why he can't find a way to contribute here. It probably won't be the numbers we all want him to have. There's always been the get Duke Johnson the football more thing. They'll get it to him if he's here. But, it's gotten to the point now, which is a good thing for the Browns, that a guy like Duke Johnson is expendable, and it wouldn't make or break their season. And they could possibly help their salary cap situation and improve at another position through that player.
Last question I'll ask you quickly. Do you sense Boston or Barry, which is a better fit? And do you sense one of them might be coming here?
Both of them
Barry
are a little
Boston.
a little more free safety than strong safety. I would suggest that Eric Berry plays a little bit better in space. The question, though, with Eric Berry comes down to how well he can stay on the field. The guy that's been through so much, an Achilles tear. He had a heel injury last year on top of, obviously, it's well documented, his heroic comeback from Hodgkin's lymphoma. He's played 3 games in 2 years. Do you want to take that risk? And at what money value do you take that risk? Maybe he does give you some games, and if the very minimum, he can give your team some really good leadership. It's interesting to see if they'll do that. John Dorsey's obviously connected. Then Steve Wilkes connected to Trey Boston. It can make a lot of sense there too. I'm expecting there to be noise between both of them. Trey plays well in space. He will come down, play the box a little bit. He could do that role here better, cover 2, cover 4 safety when he's asked to do it. But I haven't heard any strong buzz one way or the other. I know at the coaches meeting there, John Dorsey mentioned that they're at least in contact with both of them, which is promising. They're probably waiting for the right dollar figure to work out for both sides.
As always, we appreciate the time. Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report, a contributor here on cleveland.com with some great insight about who the Browns might draft and also trades and some free agency. We are going to step aside and take one more time out. Coming up, your weekly dose of Maction, Mac Tracks, when more sports and less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition returns.
Hello, I'm Chad Miles, host of Kentucky Afield, the longest-running outdoor show in the nation. I've had the privilege of watching Kentucky's elk herd grow to the largest east of the Mississippi, attaining Boone and Crockett status, and I've shared in some amazing elk hunts along the way. This year, nearly 600 tags are available to the public, and you can take your pick of tags to put in for and possibly go on the hunt of a lifetime. Simply apply by April 30th for your chance to hunt elk right here in Kentucky.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. The winter sports in the Mid-American Conference have wrapped up, and the spring sports are starting to ramp up. Let's check out this week's edition of Maction in the Mac Tracks.
Hey guys, it's Heather Klatt, and here's your Mac Track. According to the calendar, spring is officially here as softball and baseball both started conference play. However, it's still winter season for NCAA championships, so here's what you need to know about the MAC and the next month of those. The final MAC title of the winter season went to the Northern Illinois Huskies, who earned the first program gymnastics title with a score of 195.975. The Central Michigan Chippewas received their 11th consecutive NCAA regional bid and are joined by 17 event qualifiers who will be competing at regionals next week. A breakdown of the student-athlete placement is on the gymnastics page of our website, getsomemaction.com. While NCAA Gymnastics Nationals are still a month away, last week women's swim and dive wrapped up down in Austin, Texas, with Eastern Michigan's Delaney Duncan earning All-American status for the 5th time in her career with a second place finish in the 100 breaststroke. The senior set an Eastern Michigan and MAC record by tapping in at 57.83, the 10th best time in USA SCY history. Over to the mat for wrestling NCAAs, Missouri finished 6th as a team, and as a conference, the MAC had 6 individual All-Americans. It was another historic run in the postseason by MAC basketball, the Buffalo men becoming the first program since Kent State in 2001 and 2002 to win back-to-back first-round games. The women of Buffalo also becoming the first program since Toledo in 1991 and 1992 to win back-to-back first-round tournament games as well. In their second round WNIT win over Middle Tennessee State, Ohio's Cece Hooks set the program record for steals in a season. She also joined the 1,000-point club. In the round of 16, the Bobcats took down Western Kentucky to move to Saturday's Elite 8 for the WNIT. They will take on Northwestern at 7 p.m. in Evansville. We want to send special congratulations to Kent State women's golfers Michaela Finn and Pimnipa Panthong on receiving invitations to the Augusta National Women's Amateur Tournament. The duo hit the links in Georgia next weekend for the first women's event hosted at Augusta National Golf Course. We want to send best wishes to all of the former MAC student athletes participating in the 2019 MLB season across all levels of baseball, particularly 2016 MAC Pitcher of the Year, Eric Lauer, who was the starting day pitcher for the San Diego Padres. For everything else MAC sports related, be sure to follow us on all of our social media sites. We'll see you next week.
That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Stay with us. Coming up, a special edition of the High School Sports Insider, an entire half hour with Jerry Snodgrass, the Executive Director of the OHSAA. Until next week, have a great week, everybody.
Keep it simple.
Leaders lead. Leaders lead.
Let's go! Stop whining!
Again, go again, yes! You gotta rotate, go, Stone!
The High School Sports Insider is brought to you by Cuyahoga Community College, where futures begin. By the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. By Spectrum News One, always Ohio, always refreshing, always on, exclusively on Spectrum. By Dominion East Ohio, Dominion, it all starts here. And by Classic Teleproductions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Schottenstein Center on the campus of The Ohio State University for a special edition of the High School Sports Insider, along with the Executive Director of the OHSAA, Jerry Snodgrass. I'm Dave Bacon. Jerry, appreciate the time. I know you're crazy busy this time of year. We appreciate it.
Thank you. This is also an opportunity really for us to tell our story a little bit too. And you see it here for a weekend, actually 2 weekends in a row of the great things that our kids experience.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Great atmosphere at the Schottenstein Center, as is the goal with state championship weekend, and you mentioned back-to-back weekends, girls first weekend, and then last weekend the boys.
You know, it's really interesting. 2 weeks ago when we had the girls state championship, it's a little more relaxed in here, smaller crowd obviously, but it's really family friendly. And you see more and more that a dad will bring his girls to the game, and they'll just enjoy a day here. A lot of in-game experiences we have at halftime, jump rope groups, things like that for entertainment. You really see it to be a fun atmosphere for families.
Let's talk a little bit about your first 6-7 months in the role of executive director. It hasn't been a year yet. What's it been like? And how excited are you about that?
Well, you know, you hear this expression, but I'm living the dream, and I do mean that. I often say that I'm a product of this organization, and I know a lot of people could say that, but, you know, growing up, you know, in farm town of Upper Sandusky, Ohio, you know, and, you know, always had that dream of, you know, playing high school athletics. You know, I remember my first state tournament I came to in 1969, and someday could you be here? I didn't know it'd be in this capacity, but, you know, to be able to give back, that something was so good to me. When I took this job, when I was offered this job, the very first individual I called was my high school coach. And my high school coach, who's 80 years old, cried. And it was just a thank you to him for what he's done, you know, 40 some years ago to put me in this position. So I'm truly living the dream.
Well, one of the things that you have been very involved with since its inception, the Golden Megaphone Award, it's a way to get student sections involved, students involved via social media. You announced the winners at the boys semifinals. What's that been like? I see pictures of you, video with the student sections. Tell me how excited you are about that and how it's grown.
You know, I have a passion with it. You know, it's something that 4 or 5 years ago, I think, it's kind of looked at some other ideas from other states, and we wanted to get students engaged. We wanted to make a high school basketball game something where students are involved. Secondly, we wanted to make it positive. And thirdly, we really wanted to reach out to their leadership, which they all have. Seniors stand in the front row, juniors behind them. It's just the way it is. And we thought we could capture the leadership of those groups and use that for some of our overall goals of this organization. And I will tell you, it's been a blast. I get invited to their games. I'm in their student section with them, acting just like them. They keep me a kid for a while. And to bring them here to the state tournament, and then we talk to them afterwards about leadership and some other things, it is, I feel like I made lifelong friends through those young kids, so it's been wonderful.
And it's all done via social media, which is a tool that you want to use. If you want to connect with high school kids, anybody who has high school age kids, you better do it via social media.
Well, when I started 4 or 5 years ago, it was pretty easy to do because a lot of people that I worked around at the time didn't know social media, so they didn't know what I was doing. But it's been a way to capture them. Every bit of it is done through social media, all on a good side. And boy, to see the things they put out, it's helping us tell our story for developing leaders. You know, all the things we talk about the character, we're just taking it beyond the sidelines. We're taking it beyond the court into the stands with the students.
And the student sections themselves have developed a little bit of a competition through social media, which is, it's all good.
Well, you know what's really interesting this year? This went to a whole new level where they all challenged each other with buying t-shirts to support it. And then second of all, they also challenged each other to do some type of community service. And I will tell you this, we didn't even dream of that. They did that. And I think that highlights, you know, when we first started it, we also took it into our military theme night, where we have one night during this winter season that they respect the media. They first ask us, what do you want us to do? And our response was, we're not going to tell you what to do. You do it. And boy, do they think big. And I'm very proud of that.
We're with Executive Director of the OHSAA, Jerry Snodgrass. We'll take a quick time out. We will return to this special edition of the High School Sports Insider from the Schottenstein Center on the campus of Ohio State University. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. From the Schottenstein Center on the campus of The Ohio State University, site of the Boys and Girls State Basketball Championships, a special edition of the High School Sports Insider. Along with the OHSAA's Executive Director, Jerry Snodgrass, I'm Dave Bacon. Jerry, some interesting news came out a little bit ago that football is going back to Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. First of all, what a venue. I mean, there is only one state in the entire country that could play at the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's Ohio.
It is, and you know, every time when somebody talks about that, the phrase that comes to my mind forever is the birthplace of football. I mean, it truly is. I mean, it has a special place when you talk. I mean, I've said this so many times. You hear NFL players, their goal is to get to the Hall of Fame, but they don't say that. Their goal is to get to Canton. And I think that's so special, and the fact that our kids can go there, and I'm kind of going on in this a little bit, but you know, our teams get to go into the Hall of Fame free of charge. And they'll see David Baker in there, and they'll ask for photos, and he obliges unbelievably. So it's an incredible atmosphere for our teams, and I think our fans.
There was some talk that it would be going to Columbus. Take us through just the process of what went into making sure that you had the right place.
Well, you know, I was even going back to my previous life of being a board member where, you know, forever it was in Canton, Massillon. And then a bidding process opened up and, you know, started a kind of a rotation. But there's really nothing etched in stone on that. So, you know, we were then on a one-year agreement to go to Canton. So I don't like that unsettledness. And I very quickly said, regardless of anything, let's get that settled. Let's go back where it's a safe bet, trust me, and a good location. So they've taken care of us, and more importantly, they've taken care of our kids playing there. I'm sensitive to the travel issue from Southwest Ohio. I guess it's just unique in Ohio that the shape of the state, you know, Columbus is right in the center. Not every state has that. So, but it was a safe bet to go there. We'll see down the road, but at least got us through, so we take the unsettledness out of it.
The other thing that goes into that is the volunteers that are required to do that, and there is an army of them in Stark County.
There is, and I think, you know, I've always said this ever since I started going to the state finals at Canton, that it's the fiber of that community. I mean, it is so meaningful to them, so appreciative, and they treat you accordingly. Every business you go into, they welcome you unbelievably. And I think that's something I mean, we have so many small towns in the state of Ohio that do the same thing on any tournament weekend when they host, that it's just on a bigger magnitude there.
Now, the state baseball tournament is headed to Canal Park in Akron, home of the Rubber Ducks now. Columbus, where the Clippers play, was taken. So take us through the process with that as well.
And having been the baseball administrator the last 10 years, previous to my role, in fact, my first year coming to Columbus as an assistant commissioner at the time was the first year it was played at Huntington Park, first year it opened up. Wonderful host, great facility, great location. But unfortunately, the International League now can no longer set aside dates at which they're away or request dates that they're away or off. So that really created an uncertainty that the stadium may not be available. So we know at least for the next 2 years, at least that the stadium is not going to be available to us on that weekend.
Having said that, how nice is it to have a facility like Canal Park that just had a bunch of renovations? It's as nice a minor league park as there is.
Oh, it is, and I think the fan experience is incredible. Parking is so accessible, and we did look at other areas of the state. I'd like to make sure we say that. It wasn't just automatic, and again, some were not available to us, some were just probably geographically not the best suited. So it became a logical thing. When I went up and met with them, and Emily Gates, our baseball administrator, met with them, what a phenomenal, as you say, the facility is incredible, parking is ample. They want to take care of fans in the state of Ohio.
Tell me a little bit about the mindset. What are you trying to do with these state championships in each and every sport, not only basketball, not only baseball? What's the goal from the OHSAA's perspective when kids get to play in a state championship?
Number one, I always say this, that we are creating memories of a lifetime. And nothing is more evident than that. We talk about fan bases, that some schools don't bring many fans, others bring a wide assortment. Certainly we love that atmosphere when the place is filled. But I've always said this, state basketball here at The Ohio State University even, when you see them walk out of the locker room for the first time, and you see their eyes and you hear what they say, it is priceless for me, and I know that we're creating some memory of a lifetime. I put out a short little video on my social media account of the walk into the locker room when they first get into where they enter. And I could not believe the number of people that retweeted that who had played here previously and said it's the most memorable walk they've ever made, other than maybe down the aisle. So it's really something to show how what we're trying to do, number one, is create memories of a lifetime for the players, coaches, and the fans that are here.
We're going to take a quick time out. We will have more with Jerry Snodgrass, Executive Director of the OHSAA, on this special edition of the High School Sports Insider from the Schottenstein Center in Columbus. Stay with us.
I've got a 4-year degree. I wasn't really able to find a job despite putting out over 100 applications, so I decided to go back to school. Tri-C really did change my life. After getting my degree from Tri-C, I'm working in the IT field. I work at a job I love. Life is good, thanks to Tri-C. My name is Josh Gatka, and I received my IT degree from Tri-C.
Welcome back to the Schottenstein Center on the campus of The Ohio State University. Along with the OHSAA's Executive Director, Jerry Snodgrass, I'm Dave Bacon. Jerry, a lot going on as far as officials go. The OHSAA is down about 800 officials, and that's a significant chunk. And without officials, the games can't go on.
Well, probably 5 years ago at a summer meeting of all executive directors across the nation, the executive director from Kansas spoke and said, what are you going to do when you don't have enough officials to fill your games? And I'm not talking tournament, I'm talking regular season. In Kansas, they actually assign all of their regular season officials from their state office. And not too many people gave it much thought. 5 years later, we are in that situation. Yes, we're concluding the basketball season. Soccer, it's epidemic. Games have had to be rescheduled, creative scheduling to make sure that boys and girls are playing on separate nights, so on and so forth, just to make sure that we can cover games with officials. It is at an alarming rate.
Well, and the parents are one of the challenges, and you mentioned soccer. I have a daughter that plays soccer, and it's probably worse than any other sport, and I'm around all of the sports.
And I that's a great point. And sometimes, here at the state basketball tournament, I think one of our games, I'm pretty certain people wonder, I think we had 10,000 officials at that one game, at least. And people often think, well, it goes with the territory. You buy a ticket, you've got every right to do that, and you expect the best quality ever. We expect the best quality. Sometimes, though, mistakes are made. I've never known a game to go mistake-free. So, there's that fine line with that, that we have to be able to curtail that. And it's not just parents. Mm-hmm. We drew attention to it by, first of all, talking about parents, but second of all, we're talking about fans in general. Our Golden Megaphone has tried to reach out to students in that nature to be a good sporting behavior, and I think we're very successful there. Coaches are an aspect of this too.
Yep.
And so, the next question becomes, what are we going to do?
Well, the other thing is, I think people need to realize no official wakes up and says, boy, I want to mess up a call so that some team isn't going to win or is going to lose. These are by and large guys that have played the sport, want to stay connected to the sport they're refereeing or officiating, and it's not like they're getting rich doing it.
Well, there's so many things today. First of all, a lot of people, many people, do not know how our officials are licensed. They do not go to Home Depot, and there's not a special they can get 2 for 1 or anything like that. They must go through education. And even we've gotten to the point with our education, when mistakes are made during a game, we use those mistakes. Now, nobody likes to embarrass an official, but they also have been very clear, being told that we're going to use those for an educational purpose. So our officials every year in every sport must attend currently 4 classes, 5 altogether. We call one a state meeting, but they must attend those. So there's an adequate, basis for education. But again, when you're lacking officials, certainly not every official is the same in quality. Otherwise, they'd all be vying for a state championship opportunity. But at the same time, the less officials we have, we're probably going to get some officials on games that probably aren't rated quite as high as others. It's just sheer supply and demand.
Well, the other thing is they do care about getting it right. Whenever we're televising stuff, I will get people, hey, did I get football and basketball especially? Did I get that right? And
I have never encountered an official that did, as you said,
right,
did not want to get it right. What's in it for them to try to get something
correct
wrong? Holy cow. That's kind of a warped sense of feeling if you think that. So I agree with you. They want to. They'll use every game at our state tournaments the last 2 weeks where they will use that for educational purposes themselves. They will get copies of those videos. They will use them themselves.
Now, you did send out an email, a letter to parents and fans, and how was it received? And obviously you felt like it needed to be said, where you kind of asked them, cheer wholeheartedly for your team. Do not scream at the officials.
Well, it's interesting because when that went out, and ours from Ohio was received nationally. It was picked up on one of the major networks. I had somebody from high school from 40 years ago reach out and said that they were sitting on their porch in Cape Town, South Africa, and read it in USA Today. So I'm a former science teacher, and part of the problem solving is you must identify the problem first. And that is the number one thing we wanted to do. We wanted to call attention and identify that problem. And yes, I did reach out to parents on that, partly because so much of our issue centers at the junior high, middle school, youth league levels, youth leagues that we don't oversee, but we wanted to draw attention to the parents first. We will start drawing attention to other fans. As I mentioned, we are doing it with students and also our coaches. We have got to come to some understanding. They expect, quality, but we want to convince them that we're trying to do everything we can to ramp up that expectation.
We're going to step aside, take one more time out. We will return for one final segment with Jerry Snodgrass, the Executive Director of the OHSAA, here on a special edition of the High School Sports Insider from the Schottenstein Center in Columbus. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher. Or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher. Be my teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you.
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you. I dare you. I dare you. I'm waiting.
Welcome back to the Schottenstein Center on the campus of The Ohio State University, a special edition of the High School Sports Insider. We appreciate Jerry Snodgrass, Executive Director of the OHSAA, spending a half hour with us. Jerry, let's talk a little bit about the challenges. Every position, every organization faces challenges. What are some of the challenges for the OHSAA?
I'm really glad you asked that, because the viewers of this need to understand that I recognize we have challenges. We have problems. We're not anywhere exclusive that we don't. And probably right now, back in the early 90s when open enrollment was created by legislative action, it has really opened up a different challenge, where kids can move around to schools for educational reasons, but we try to limit those moves for athletic reasons. Yet at the same time, we do say that athletics are educational athletics. So dealing with that is probably one of our biggest challenges. The other aspect of that, it's probably our biggest challenge. The other aspect, we've identified the officiating problem, and I think that's a key one. But the other part of that is how we deal with it. Many people, I think, on a daily basis think I sit behind this big mahogany desk, put a gavel down and say, this is the rule I want today. I can make no rules. And people find that hard to believe. Well, you're the executive director. Right, but I'm the executive director for our currently 814 high schools and over 900 junior highs. So I'm at their mercy on any rule that's proposed on the passage of that by our member schools. It's a democratic process and one I believe strongly in.
The other thing is OHSAA doesn't charge membership fees. It doesn't. The state tournaments are great atmospheres, and a lot of that is because you've been able to do that with corporate sponsorship and those kind of things. That's important.
And it is very challenging. People think that we're in a big office tower in downtown Columbus, 20 stories with all these employees. We have a full-time staff of either 22 or 23, depending upon, we're a short one right now. But, we're not very big. We're very small compared to the rest of the states on what we're able to provide. But I think you hit a key element. From as long as I can ever remember, we have done this without charging a membership fee to our schools. And when you think about it, we don't even have a tournament entry fee to get in. Yet you take any school that goes to a tournament on a Saturday, wrestling, basketball, it doesn't matter, they're charged a fee. And, we want to maintain that, but I don't know how long we can. And I don't want to be the bearer of that bad news, of course. But we're still able to do that with a lot of hard work with sponsorships, partnerships, and everything else. So really a challenge for us.
What's the thing that's made you smile the most? We said you've been in about 6-7 months full time as the executive director. What has been something that you've kind of smiled and said, boy, this went well?
I that's a great question, because I feel strongly. I had several goals that I had. One of them was to tell our story better, tell our story about what we're providing in base, with no membership fees and so on and so forth. The thing that's made me smile the most is when I go out, I'm a former athletic director. I'm a former teacher. I'm kid-centered. I love teaching and I miss it every day. I'm a former coach. When I do hear that you're making a difference, that you're making a positive difference, and I've been thrilled. We're 114 years old, not me personally, but 114 years old. I want to take it to another 114 because I truly believe we're offering good things, and I want to work those challenges, and I'm very thrilled that I'm able to start turning it over to that younger generation.
Well, Jerry Snodgrass, I'm going to make you a doctor
That's
before
all right.
We're done. We appreciate the time. Thanks very much. Executive Director of the
Thank you.
OHSAA. Appreciate the half hour.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
we're going to say goodbye from the Schottenstein Center on the campus of The Ohio State University. It's been a special edition of the High School Sports Insider. We appreciate everything that Jerry Snodgrass has done. Keep up the good work, and we will see you again next week on the High School Sports Insider.
I decided to go to Tri-C because it was easy to commute to. I was able to start Kent State as a junior. All my credits from Tri-C transferred to Kent State. I will be able to earn my bachelor's degree in 4 years. I saved a lot of money starting at Tri-C. My name is Stephanie Bain, and I earned my first degree at Cuyahoga Community College.